Welcome to the 3 Championship Drive Podcast, a Pistons podcast hosted by me, Lance Caparosi. Follow me on X at Lance Caparosi, then go to YouTube and hit subscribe to the 3 Championship Drive channel. And do me a favor, tell a Pistons fan. The Detroit Pistons have traded Marvin Bagley III, Isaiah Livers, in 2 second-round draft picks to the Washington Wizards for Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala. That was dropped by Woj, not the nuclear bomb we thought we were going to get when we heard about all this change in Detroit. But still a bomb, nonetheless. Thankfully, didn't take out too many people. But both Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala are in their final years of their contract. So the Pistons are actually projected to have almost $64 million in cap room this season by trading Marvin Bagley and his $12.5 million he was going to get next year. So now they have more money coming off. They're one of the few teams that can actually offer I think it's a 30% max contract. I think they're what they're calling it, which is huge. They're only one of the few teams in the NBA that can do it. They have 5 second-round picks available over the next 7 years. They also created a trade exception worth $5.7 million. And I'm going to be honest, I'm one of the few fans that actually likes this trade. Even from a basketball standpoint, I like this trade. So Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala, they cannot be moved at the deadline. So they have to be on the team, I believe, for 2 months once the trade is finalized before they can get moved. Now, there were thoughts that there might be, before the trade is finalized, maybe they'll work another team in there, or, they might move them immediately and see what they can do. This trade has been talked about as a table-setting move. Now, the trade deadline is still a few weeks away, so we could see some more moves. I believe February 8th is the trade deadline day. So we could see some more moves. And now that the Pistons have created all this cap room, you might be able to get another bigger contract guy in without having to lose too much. This is a smart move. Now, from the basketball side of things, I do want to talk about it. But before I get into that, I just want to share my initial thoughts. I did think the only part of this trade, there's 2 parts that actually sucked. And one of them was that the Pistons had to unload multiple second-round picks to get off of Marvin Bagley's contract, which I really didn't think was that bad of a contract. I thought it was pretty fair when it was signed. I thought it was a slight overpay, but not as, I really didn't hate it. But they also had to use second-round picks to bring Marvin Bagley in, so they're just losing second-round picks around Marvin Bagley. That's the part that sucks from this trade, was just how many second-round picks have been lost. And then I'm a little disappointed that Isaiah Livers' time in Detroit has come to an end, but I'm hoping his career gets going with a change of scenery. Now he's going to be Jordan Poole's teammate again in Washington. Who knows, maybe that change and being around someone he's really comfortable with, maybe it unlocks something. I think he has the skill set that you identify to, the skill set you want in a 3-and-D guy. It's just, I don't know why his play dropped off since those first 19 games in Detroit. Went from shooting 42% from 3 to 30% in, this year. I think even less than that. It was bad. But again, I hope it goes well for him. So now I just want to talk about Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala and how their play fits for the Detroit Pistons. Now, Gallinari, he has seen better days. Do not get it twisted, because the guy can still shoot the ball. It is a down year for him. He's only shooting 31% from 3, and he's a career average 38% shooter. Now, he is coming off an ACL injury, though. He missed all of last year with the ACL injury. But he was still a double-digit scorer in 2021 and 2022. So just 2 seasons ago, this dude was averaging 11 points per game for the Atlanta Hawks with 5 rebounds and 2 assists while shooting 43% from the field and 38% from the three-point line, while also 90% from the free throw line, because he has a nice touch. That's what he can do. And I think the shooting will come back to him at some point during the season. It's only been 26 games for him that he's played in this year. I think once more the rust kicks off and the conditioning goes up, you'll see him closer to that 38%. And I love the creativity that Monty has now with Gallinari coming off the bench. You can play him at the 4. You can play him at the 5. You could create more spacing for Asar Thompson. You could go Gallinari at the 5, Knox at the 4, Asar at the 3, and then Burks and Sasser in the backcourt. And think about all the spacing you've created for Asar. Now you're putting him in a lineup where it can maximize his skill set. Because now that Isaiah Stewart's back, Kevin Knox has moved to the bench. Bojan's probably still going to start at the 3. So you got enough shooting in the starting lineup. Now you're getting some. And this looks more like your traditional NBA roster today. But I love Danilo Gallinari's fit with the team. I think it's going to be fun to watch him maybe run a little pick and roll with Cade, or just being another guy that can stand in the corner when him and Ivy drive and the defense's collapses. This is just another guy that's going to hurt you from the outside once he gets it going. Now, Mike Muscala, he's another center. We love these guys. He's a real stretch 5. He's not going to turn the fortunes of this team. You know, this is a guy, whether he's getting 15 minutes per game or, you know, not even playing, he's going to be on the roster. He's been in the NBA for 10 years. He's never made a huge wave. He's just been a pro's pro with whatever roster he's been on. And, you know, if you are facing injuries, he's a guy that you can plug in and he's going to play. Again, not going to get you big minutes, not going to get you put up big numbers, but a guy that can fill a role. That's all you need from him. He's going to sit on the bench. He's going to be a pro to Duren, to Isaiah Stewart, and everybody around him. That's what you're getting with Mike Muscala. Now, he is Arn Tellum's son's agent, so that makes you wonder, like, things are a little interesting. You know, they really like to look out for their own up there in the Detroit Pistons front office. But Mike Muscala, don't get it twisted. Just a pro's pro. I don't see him getting a ton of minutes in Detroit. He was only playing 14 with 2 starts for Washington, and they've had some issues up front this season. So I think that's why you're getting it. But, you know, as a guy that I don't expect him to get a lot of minutes in Detroit, he's not bad for the money. He's not making a lot. It's coming off the books. He's a stretch 5. If you do have to play him, he still creates some matchups that favor Cade, Ivy, and Asar. Then that's what you want from Mike Muscala. Other than that, this trade it's a little underwhelming for what we expected this year to be. I'm still glad it happened. I'm glad the Pistons will have more money to play with in the offseason. We're going to drop a few names that you should watch out for, you know, as the trade deadline approaches and as offseason approaches. But that's the first change that we've seen in Detroit since Tom Gore's talked about change coming to Detroit. The New Orleans Pelicans are interested in Alec Burks. This comes from Sam Amico at Amico Hoops of Hoops Wire. Now, I understand some fans out there will tell you this guy's kind of unreliable. That's fine. It's still a rumor. We're going to talk about it. The Pelicans, they have been looking to move Kyra Lewis Jr. He's a 6'1" little guard out of Alabama. He's only 22 years old, I believe. Came in the league when he played his first game, he was 19 years old. Yeah, he's 22. Now the numbers have slipped pretty much since his rookie year. And he is under contract for $5.7 million. The Pistons now have that trade exception for $5.7 million. There might be something there with the Pelicans. Now they are targeting 3-point shooting. That is why they like Alec Burks. He's a good creator off the bench when he's feeling it. Now, when I first saw this pop up on my screen on social media, I thought, You know, the only position I'm interested in from the Pelicans, and if I'm being realistic, is the forward spot. I think of Herb Jones, I think of Trey Murphy III, and I think of Larry Nance Jr. I think Jones is off the table. I think he's more available than Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy, I believe, is untouchable. From what I read, Pelicans, they don't want to trade him. Who would want to trade a 6'10", 3-and-D guy with that type of athleticism who's still growing in his role in the NBA? He's a good player, and he's also bouncing back from injury. So I just don't expect him, for the Pistons to actually be able to get a Trey Murphy. Larry Nance Jr. for Alec Burks, contracts you could do a 1-for-1. That makes a lot of sense. And if you need to bring Kyra Lewis Jr. back, that's fine. I just hope the Pistons aren't making a trade for Kyra Lewis Jr. I just don't. I'm just not a fan of his. I was when he was coming out, but he's also just a 6'1" guard. We got another small guard in Marcus Sasser that has a hard time seeing the floor, and he's already proven that he deserves to see him more. Then you got Jaden Ivey. Then you got Cade Cunningham. There's just a lot of minutes to go around at the guard spot, not to mention Killing Hayes. So I hopefully Kyra, if this trade does go down and they are rumored to have some with Kyra, I hope it is just to fill that trade exception. But I really do want them to go after Larry Nance Jr. I think this would free up minutes in the backcourt by giving up Alec Burks. He improves the 4 and the 5 spot. Even though we just did bring in Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala, dude, you could not hate playing Larry Nance Jr. at the small ball 5, backing up Duren, and then having Gallinari back up Isaiah Stewart, because we know the Pistons are going to still go with 2 bigs. But man, to have Larry Nance Jr. in there, I think that's as good of a trade as you're going to get with Alec Burks. I don't expect him to bring in that much. I've seen a lot of reports and fans saying, you could probably only get a second-round pick or, a player that might need to be more of a reclamation project. Give me Larry Nance Jr. at the 5 spot for Alec Burks. Contracts work. That's a trade that works for me. I tweeted it out, and there were a lot of fans that seemed to be on board with Larry Nance Jr. because he's a good defensive-minded guy. He's not going to burn you on the offensive end. This is a guy that's averaging 5 points, 5 rebounds, shooting 58% from the field and 48% from 3. He does only take like 1 3-pointer a game, but he can hit him. He just had 3 against the Nuggets, and he did that in 20 minutes. He had 3 3-pointers for 13 points, had a block, had 2 steals. He's more defensive-minded, but he also gives Cade a lob threat. You're bringing athleticism off the bench, which is something the Pistons, they don't have athleticism with high basketball IQ, and you're going to get that with Larry Nance Jr. So I would love for this trade to go down. I just don't even know if the Pelicans make it, because Jordan Hawkins just had a career night where I believe he had 34, where he's kind of coming into his own. And I do know that the Pelicans are looking for more outside shooting, which is something you're going to get with Alec Burks. It's just, I don't know if they'd be willing to get rid of Larry Nance Jr., who can fill in the 4 or the 5. But if they are, that's the trade I want to make. I'm not going to talk about Zion Williamson or Brandon Ingram. I think Trey Murphy, like I said earlier, he's unavailable. Herb Jones, he's probably more available than Trey Murphy, but I don't think the Pelicans are going to give him up over Larry Nance. I think the first guy off this list would be Larry Nance. Now, maybe if you're the Pistons, you can try to finagle your way into Najee Marshall as well, because he's only on I think he's only getting paid $1 million. So I don't know. I just think this is going to be, if there is any truth to the rumor and the Pistons are looking to make a trade, I think our best shot would be a 1-for-1. And I do think it would be Alec Burks for Larry Nance Jr. And I do love his fit with his team, because I'm a little nervous about still giving minutes to James Wiseman. I'm nervous about giving minutes to Mike Muscala. So if you get Larry Nance Jr., now you got 6 bigs playing, all trying to get minutes at that 4 and 5. But you only need to play 4 of them. You'd be good. And Larry Nance would be better than Mike Muscala, because he can still spread the floor, but he also protects the rim a little bit. Give me Larry Nance Jr. So there are some names that have been linked to the Detroit Pistons all season long. So we have Zach LaVine, Pascal Siakam, DeJounte Murray, and Andrew Wiggins. And this is the table setting that I was talking about earlier. Pistons fans are wondering if the trade they made earlier today was setting them up to clear cap room to bring one of these big names in. And maybe, there's people talking about how you can make a trade for Zach LaVine without giving up one of your young guys. And I say go for it. If you can bring in Zach LaVine without having to trade Jaden Ivey or Asar Thompson, that's even better. Now, I know his contract sucks. I know that's what people are going to be looking at. So I'm going to bring it up for you guys. And it's a lot. Let me just say that. So this year he's making $40 million. Next year it'll be 43. Following year will be 45. And then he has a player option when he's 31 years old for the 2026-27 season. And that player option is for $48.9 million for Zach LaVine. And again, if you can bring him in without giving up a Jaden Ivey or an Asar Thompson, and the Bulls are just looking at like James Wiseman and Joe Harris, like say, hey, look, we're rebuilding. We just want to get rid of this guy's contract. Give us who you got. You pull the trigger. You pull the trigger because he gives you enough size where you could play Cade, Zach LaVine, and Jaden Ivey at the 1, 2, and 3. Now, you're giving up a little defensively. Let's just be honest. None of these guys are going to lock anybody down. But then you still have Isaiah Stewart. You still have Jalen Duren. Now you're bringing Bojan off the bench where you still got some more offense. At this point, you've already traded Alec Burks to New Orleans. So you got Larry Nance. It's a dream scenario for Zach LaVine. But how does he fit with Cade Cunningham? Let me just say he's an awesome two-guard. The flack he receives from some Pistons fans is so unwarranted. They talk about this guy like he has a disease for basketball, and I do not understand the hate Zach LaVine gets. Is he was never a two-way player, but he is a certified bucket getter. This is a guy, dude, he's a gun for hire, basically. He's so good offensively. I mean, 46% from the field, 38% from three, 83% from the line for his career, while averaging 20 points per game for his career. He did average 27 his first time being an all-star with 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, and half a block per game. He's a good player, dude. What he brings to the table, he gives Cade a guy who can simply go out and just get you a bucket. And he can do it at a high level. He can score from all 3 levels, three-pointers, mid-range, attack the rim. Now, teams wouldn't be able to solely game plan against Cade Cunningham with a Zach LaVine on the team because, again, he's a certified bucket and he can score. He can create a shot for himself. He can play make for others. He'll get hit with double teams while finding openings for other players. I don't know where the whole Zach LaVine is only a scorer thing comes from. Yeah, he is a bucket, like I've said twice, now 3 times already. But he's still going to get assists for you. He's still going to average around 5 a game. And that's not really him forcing the issue. He's still going to go out there and rebound for you. The only thing you're complaining about as fans is he doesn't bring it defensively. Yeah, but also we've never seen him on a team where he isn't one of the best players. Now, he's still going to be one of the best players in Detroit, but you're hoping he starts to fall into that secondary role with the improvement from Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. That maybe he just slides in and he becomes that 2A or 3 option on your team. But I'm all for Zach LaVine. Now, if you have to give up Jaden Ivey, I'm a little less on it. But also, like, I would understand it if the Pistons did it. Because then you're asking yourselves, does Jaden Ivey become an all-star? If we can go out and get an all-star for him who's still under contract. I would understand it. I'm not the biggest fan of trading Jaden Ivey for Zach LaVine. but I understand it. Zach LaVine is probably the most likely guy to be brought into Detroit as well, just because, with Pascal, he's going to be a free agent. With DeJounte Murray, you have Clint Capella apparently being, as discussed, like if you want Murray, you gotta trade for Clint Capella as well. Then we also got Andrew Wiggins on this list who, we'll talk about him in a minute. I do think that Zach LaVine it's just all the writing on the wall. This would be such a Pistons move, and it's a move that I wanted to avoid. But with how many holes this roster has, with how they're playing, with how the future is shaping up, this is a move you have to make in order to keep Cade Cunningham happy. You got to start showing him now that you are willing to build a team around him and his skill set. And I think Zach LaVine, he gives you what you want in a two guard alongside Cade. You can also still run Cade off the ball with Zach LaVine because he is a good passer. He's going to get those assist numbers. He knows how to create a shot for a teammate. So you can still do that. This won't just be 100% of the time Cade's bringing the ball up, 100% of the time Zach LaVine is playing off the ball. You could still run Cade off the ball with Zach LaVine. It's not my favorite choice out of all these guys. Like, my number one is Murray. Number two is Pascal Siakam. But then number three, as a good consolation, it's Zach LaVine. Now, if the Pistons somehow ended up with Zach LaVine and Pascal Siakam in this offseason, that's a win. That's incredible. That would be just something I would love to see. But Zach LaVine, great fit alongside Cade Cunningham. Don't love the contract, but if you can get him without losing one of the core four, you got to pull that trigger. So Pascal Siakam is a guy I've talked about before. And I'll tell you again why I like his fit with Cade Cunningham. I get it. He's not the best three-point shooter. That is what a lot of fans will point out to. But he still has hit 34% of his three-pointers for his career. He's only shooting about 30% this year. But he can hurt you from the mid-range. He can attack. He has a nice little floater game. He's good at the rim. He can play off the ball. He can make strong cuts. He draws a double team, and then he has the vision to find those guys, where he was averaging 6 assists per game last year, and that number would have been higher if the Raptors didn't have their shortcomings when it came to outside shooting. I love Pascal Siakam for this team. He would be super good. He can run it in transition. He's one of the only guys on this team that gives you elite offense and elite defense. He's another guy where if Cade is struggling, you can just give him the ball and he'll go get a bucket or he'll go create one for somebody. That's what I like about Pascal Siakam. Now, is Pascal Siakam, would this be a Blake Griffin 2.0? This was brought up on the Hoop Site podcast by Michael Scotto. And I guess I see the resemblance in why he said that. But is he saying it's like the Blake Griffin trade because the Pistons would potentially be moving too many assets for him? Because if you remember that Blake Griffin trade, and I'll pull it up here, it was Tobias Harris, Avery Bradley, Boban, a first and second round pick for Bryce Johnson, Willie Reed, and Blake Griffin. That was that trade. But unlike the Blake Griffin trade, Pascal Siakam is an unrestricted free agent this upcoming offseason. Blake Griffin was already under contract as he had just signed I think it was a 5-year, $172 or $175 million extension with the Clippers before that trade had happened. So there's a little differences there. Now, is he saying it's like Blake Griffin 2.0 because Pascal Siakam brings you from a lottery-bound team to a play-in playoff team and probably with a first-round exit? Is that what he's saying? I wish I'd gotten more context with it. And again, I think it's fair, but I just want to know what he means exactly with Blake Griffin 2.0 because Pascal hasn't had a bunch of injuries either in his career. So I would like to know what he means exactly by that. I personally don't think it's a Blake Griffin 2.0. I think Pascal Siakam, because He hasn't been dealing with injuries. He's still going to be playing at an elite level for a few more seasons. We may not get we might not get that version of Blake Griffin that we did. I'm forgetting the year. I think it was 2018, 2019 Blake Griffin. And I don't know if we'll get that with Pascal Siakam, but in terms of him being a guy that can go out and get you 20, 7 and 5, yeah, dude, he's going to be able to do that. Yeah, so that season was 2018 and 2019 from Blake Griffin. Career highs in scoring, rebounding, not rebounding, but in assist. I don't even know if it was assist. Still a great all-around year for Blake Griffin. I just want to know what the 2.0 thing means, because I just think that there are, if you're looking, there are some similarities that it's just the team. There's a player that he's not as happy in his situation, but even then, I think Blake Griffin was still happy in Los Angeles. But Pascal, yeah, so I don't know what this. I really don't know what the same thing is. I really don't know how this is Blake Griffin 2.0 for the Detroit Pistons, because I just don't know. They haven't even made a trade, and I just wish they had gone a little bit deeper into it. I don't think it's Blake Griffin 2.0. You know why I like Pascal Siakam. I've already said it. But what I will say is, unlike the last episode when I talked about this, I did say that if you can find an all-star, you have to trade for him. Now that I really understand it, that he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, you don't trade Jaden Ivey. You don't try to make a trade like that. Instead, you go after him in the offseason. That's what you need to do with Pascal Siakam. You're one of the few teams that can offer him the money that he wants to. I got to go back to trusting this front office. Hopefully they can get things done. But Pascal Siakam, not the next Blake Griffin, going to be a good player for Detroit if he makes his way here. Now, the next player I'm going to talk about, I talked about him again a little while ago on one of my last episodes, and that's DeJounte Murray. Wow, I keep saying his name wrong. DeJounte Murray, excuse me. He is on the table for the Hawks, and I believe this is the only guy I would trade Jaden Ivey for. If the Hawks said, look, give me a package centered around Jaden Ivey, and you can throw in Alec Burks, so it's Jaden Ivey and Alec Burks for DeJounte Murray, I would take it. I think that is a fair trade for DeJounte Murray. He's a solid guard, gives you the stuff on defense. He's a combo guard offensively, meaning he can play on the ball, off the ball. He can attack the rim. He can hurt you from the mid-range. He's shooting 39%, 40% from three this year. He's very efficient. He allows you to play Cade off the ball. This is the only guy in the list that I would trade Jaden Ivey for and not even blink about it. Because this is who I'm hoping Jaden Ivey can get to and be that type of combo guard, that type of presence for the Pistons, which is what I think DeJounte Murray can be. I would love this trade. Now, I don't know if it actually happens for the Pistons, because now there's reports where the Hawks are like, hey, you got to take on Clint Capella, which for the Pistons, they do have the assets, but do the Hawks want, an Alec Burks and a Boyan and like a Joe Harris or something and Jaden Ivey? Or does you know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like there's adding Clint Capella in there, that becomes less of an opportunity for the Pistons to make and to take Murray's contract on. I just don't think they want Clint Capella with Jalen Duren there, and maybe they could work out a 3-team trade. But I think with the news where Clint Capella has to be attached to Murray, I think that puts a damper on it for the Pistons. Now, someone did tweet at me and say that it's either Clint Capella or DeAndre Hunter. I don't really know. I didn't see that. I just saw Clint Capella's name would have to be thrown in the trade with DeJounte Murray, which I think that probably opens it up for the Lakers to make a play. I know that they've been expressing the need for a big man. But Murray, again, if it's a package around Jaden Ivey and they just say, give us Alec Burks, I'm taking it in a heartbeat. That would be perfect. This is a good player that you can plug in for Cade. And he's under contract, which is one of these contracts, like I think you'll be making $31 million in the final year, which is a player option. That's a steal for this guy's abilities and what he brings to the table. Now, the last name I'm about to bring up, I'm least excited about him just because he's had a bad year. And I don't know where his career goes from here, but hopefully he bounces back. But that is Andrew Wiggins. He's just he's just had a bad year for the Warriors. That's really all it comes down to for me. Averaging 11 points per game, shooting like 29% from 3, only shooting 41, 42% from the field, down from 45. The three-point percentage is the worst at 29 when his career is 35. He's just had a bad year. I don't know what it is. He only played 37 games last year. I know he had some personal stuff going on. Now, this is a guy where, I mean, if you're Detroit and you play your cards right and you don't have to give up another young guy for Andrew Wiggins, and you could bring him in for, I don't know, maybe it is Boyan you have to trade for him. I might take it because I would be willing to gamble that he'll have a good year next year bouncing back. Now the things Andrew Wiggins does is he is a good defensive player. He is willing to take the challenge on of defending the team's best player. He's more of a modern four. I know he's listed as a small forward, but he does get almost half of his minutes from that four spot. He can still run it in transition. He can still hit a three-point shot, even though it's been bad this year. It allows you to get really creative with him in playing Cade Cunningham. You could play a little faster. I'm kind of talking myself into Andrew Wiggins, but at the end of the day, like I've already said, he's the player with the name that I'm least excited about. I don't care as much that Andrew Wiggins is on the block as the rest of these guys are. I do see a world where the Pistons do trade for Andrew Wiggins, and I don't want to sit here and say that even though it's the name that I'm least excited about, I wouldn't be disappointed. I just really wouldn't be that happy if it happened, if that makes sense to people listening and watching. But there's not really too much to say about Andrew Wiggins. He's more of like, he's a high-end role player. Now, he has been an all-star. Kind of confused at how that happened other than Warriors fans just voting him in. Now, he has been an all-star. He knows how to win. He played pretty damn well in the finals, averaging 18 and 8 for the Warriors when they won it. He is like a Swiss Army knife. It's kind of like he has the game where, like, if Asar developed where he was just multi-tooled and could be used that way and could play the 3 or the 4, that's like perfect for Asar. So like, maybe that's why you bring in Andrew Wiggins, so maybe Asar can model his game after him a little bit. I don't know. But Andrew Wiggins, he has been rumored to the Detroit Pistons. I believe they're like last when it came of like the top 6 teams that have been rumored to him in terms of teams that are going to that have the best odds to bring him in. I believe they're like plus 950. So I don't know if there's even a real shot for Andrew Wiggins, but I don't know, just a name that I thought I'd throw up on the page. So Kevin Knox. Actually, let's talk about Monty Williams real quick. He had a quote last game that they played. I think it was after the game, but he said there was a big organizational meeting yesterday, and one thing that was pointed out to me was Ivy as the lead ball handler hasn't happened much. Then he says, I have to eat it. I wish I did it earlier. I'm going to be real short and real sweet with this. That's pathetic of a coach to admit. It seems like Monty did not watch film, did not watch this team play, did not understand the strengths and weaknesses of any of the players on this team, and he was just figuring it out as the season go on. He should be putting guys in positions for them to succeed, and he hasn't done that this year. It's just, I don't even know what you call it. It's just like some weird hodgepodge of, hey, we're going to try using this guy this way, we're going to try using this guy this way, but then, you need people in the organization to tell you, hey, maybe you should be trying this because this is what worked. I don't know. It's just not a good look for Monty Williams to admit, yeah, I wish I had done that earlier. I didn't realize how good he would be as the lead ball handler, even though he did it all of his rookie year. Now, he wasn't much of a point guard when he was at Purdue. He did play a ton of off ball, but you've seen what he can do on the ball. You can see what he's doing when he gets downhill, when he gets a screen. Nobody can stay in front of him. He can get to the rim in one or two dribbles. He's incredibly fast. He can push the pace in transition. You need to put the ball in a guy's hand like that. And it doesn't have to be he has to do it more than Cade or there needs to be 50-50. It could be a 60-40 split. You know, Jaden Ivey's that talented where he can play on the ball or off the ball. You just need to find ways to maximize that talent. And Monty Williams hasn't done it. It was I don't know. I mean, nothing surprises me anymore with this team. So Kevin Knox, has he found a home in Detroit? He has been one of the biggest surprises to all of us Pistons fans. He's shooting 37% from three this year. No, I'm not saying Kevin Knox has figured it out. He's going to be lighting up the league like he does for Rico Hines. Like, that's a whole different animal right there when he's playing at the Rico Hines runs. Kevin Knox is just an absolute baller when he plays in the offseason. But has he found a home in Detroit? I like to think that he has, because he's around 6'6", 6'7". He can play either the 3 or the 4. He is shooting 37% from the three-point line. He shows effort defensively. He likes to run in transition. Now, this isn't going to be a guy where I'm talking like, yeah, we need to start him. We need to bring him, and he's going to start alongside Cade. Screw the offseason. We got our guy. But what I mean by that is he has shown to be a pros pro. What I mean he found a home in Detroit. He's a pros pro. I think he's okay with being a 10th or an 11th man. Maybe he could get some spot starts. Maybe you could use him part of the rotation during the regular season. Then when it comes playoff time, you push him out of the rotation. I like him. I really do. And I think the trading of Isaiah Livers is showing that, maybe the Pistons like him. Maybe they think that this can be not a building block, but a guy that can round out your roster in a season or two. I hope he's in Detroit past this season. I hope he's not traded. I hope they bring him back on a team-friendly deal, because he has proven that in a season full of losing, you can still find some wins with the guys that are on your team. That's what you found in Kevin Knox. You found a guy that is producing. He's averaging, I don't want to call him career highs because he did average 13 a game his rookie year, but this is, statistically speaking, his second best season in terms of scoring, and he really has put it all together for the Pistons. And I hope, again, this is a home for him for a few more seasons. Okay, I got one final topic for you guys, and that is Jalen Duren the next Andre Drummond? I'm just going to keep this short, and this is such a crazy thing to think about, because Andre Drummond, how am I going to put this? Andre Drummond was not a franchise player. He masqueraded as one. If anything, the team would have been much better if he had been like the third option on a team and not pegged as the franchise. I mean, he was a fantasy god at getting you double-doubles, the king of the 2020, could get you a block shot and a steal. It's just that when it came to like actual wins and losses and how does he fit on a team, there really was nothing you could point at. He was a good rebounder, but he was very inefficient at the rim, and he just had a really quick second jump where he could get his missed shot faster than anybody else could. That's what contributes to it. I don't want to knock him, but I don't think he's not the same type of rebounder that a Ben Wallace or an Akeem Olajuwon or a Dennis Rodman were. He wasn't that type of a rebounder, but he still was pretty good. Now, is Jalen Duren the next Andre Drummond? I think what people mean by this is they think that Jalen Duren is just going to be a stat stuffer and that it's not going to contribute to wins. That's the difference I see in these two. Jalen Duren, you can see how his play actually affects the game and how it can contribute to winning. And not to mention, his motor is just always going. It's just always going for Jalen Duren. I felt like with Andre Drummond, there were moments where he would just do enough and it got him by, in that, he broke out of like what was expected of him to do as a player in the moment. Like, he would battle his own teammates for rebounding. Well, I mean, how does that help you win? I mean, it helps you individually, but how does that help you win the game when you're getting out of position just to stuff your individual stats? So, no, I don't think they're the same. I don't think Jalen Duren is the next Andre Drummond. I think that's, fans not really looking at how he plays and how his play affects the team, even though the Pistons are all-time losing right now. I just think Jalen Duren's game, like, we're witnessing the foundation of a guy, the foundation being set for a guy that maybe not carry you offensively, but he can be a threat offensively when it's passing, whether it's dunking, whether it's like stepping out and hitting a shot. We're starting to see that more from him versus a guy that's just like, it's all me, 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 me. That's where I think the difference is. And I wish I would have cleaned up that last topic just a little bit. Man, I wish I would have cleaned it up, because I know the moment I end this, I'm going to be thinking about more reasons why Jalen Duren is not the next Andre Drummond. And maybe we revisit this topic later on as we get more comfortable doing the whole YouTube and podcasting thing solo. But yeah, that is going to be my take. It's kind of wishy-washy. It's not really the best take, but I don't believe Jalen Duren is the next Andre Drummond. I want to thank you guys for listening to the 3 Championship Drive podcast. Do me a favor, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating, vote in our polls, and more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.